Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme, exploring the genre of indie rock. This time we're looking at the band The Joy Formidable, specifically the track Whirring off of the album The Big Roar that came out in 2011. Let's dive into it and see what The Joy Formidable is bringing to the table today. Okay, so we have a 12-beat phrase. We have 4 groupings of 3 and 3 groupings of 4 in it, simultaneously heard. Just a singular drum beat. That was an interesting verse. Just really sitting within this. I like the tremolo picking idea. I was not expecting that. Okay. Okay. Uh, Wowzers. I think this is one of the most wild rides I've been on in a while. I enjoyed the opening 3 minutes or so, and honestly, we'll probably have to dissect and discuss that separately from the back half. But I enjoyed it for what it was. It had some neat ideas in it, and I think it does a great job at storytelling. It approaches theme from a musical direction. Um, I'm kind of hoping that lyrically themes line up as well. But I thought it did a great job at doing what it was doing, and it caught my ear. Not what I would normally listen to, but I enjoyed it. And then we hit the midpoint and we get some tremolo picking of the same note for a while, like a minute. And then we get a new note, but it's like another 30 seconds, 40 seconds of it. Those numbers are probably exaggerated. It probably wasn't that long, but it felt like a long time. We would just sit on these. I'm like, dang, what's going on here? Like, it was sort of tying into some of the themes that I was getting from the beginning of the track, and we'll dive into that. I just want to give a little initial reaction though. It was mimicking some of the things I thought the song was about. And I'm like, okay, this not my favorite way to go about it, but at least it's synergistic in ways. And then the last minute and a half was just a blast. Taking everything that I thought the song was and subverting it entirely on every direction. I don't think there are many songs where I can start out kind of mid, lose interest in it, and the ending recontextualizes everything to where I love it. This went from maybe I'll check out more of them to I'm pretty good with just the one track to I'm going to listen to this album later. I like I said, a wild ride. Totally bonkers. Okay, so we got to talk about the two halves. They're very different. They achieve different things. They're going in different directions as far as composition, storytelling, everything. They're just very different concepts entirely. The first half is hyperfixated on a type of, as far as I can tell, folk style, folk rock, particularly style of writing. In fact, probably to narrow this down a little bit more, Americana style of writing, hyper focusing on a single idea and not really exploring too much into it. It's the simplicity of both the scope and the complexity. Yeah, I had to think about that for a second. That's what I meant. It is not incredibly deep. There is a bass guitar that plays some nice bass lines. There's a lead guitar that gives us chords slash foundational stuff. It's just kind of a general thing there. We have the vocals giving us our lead melody, and the drums, which are focusing in on the one oddity, the one little bit of depth to all of this, which is the polymeter going on. The polymeter is sort of broken up into two ways. If you listen to the snare and the bass, you're going to find yourself in a 4/4, 3 bars of that. If you listen to the guitar, you're going to find yourself in 3/4 with 4 bars of that. And both of those equal out to a 12-beat phrase. You're just going to feel them differently, but they're going to start and stop at the same time. You're going to find the repetition point to be every 12 beats. They just kind of lose their way. They go their own separate paths in the middle, but they always come back together for beat 13, or beat 1 of the repetition. We hear a lot of this. A lot of this. It's one idea. We hear it over and over. The vocal melody, if I remember correctly, was also in the 4/4, I think. And this gives us our verse. We explore this twice over. The second time is a little different. There's some more production to it. The guitar tone is bigger. I think we move from single notes to chords. But I think other than that, the composition is identical. We just have a production change to make it feel larger. The chorus is just, if I remember correctly, it was 3/3/2 was our phrasing, which is 8, which is 2 bars of 4/4. So it kind of shows us a little bit of the 3 feeling that we have, that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But instead of continuing on with that, although I think it was the opposite inflection, it was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 2 and 3 were emphasized, I'm pretty sure, this time around. And then at the end of it, we just have 1, 2, which is actually what we heard at the end of the 4/4 phrase, the 12 beats on that, from the guitar in the verse. So it's a nice little way of combining both sides, giving us the 3 feel while also giving us the phrasal ending, the ending of the phrase from the verse, kind of mixing our 4 and our 3 together. This one idea, 2 bars long, 8 beats long, is what we hear over and over and over and over in our chorus. At least in our verse, we had a chord progression. We had one chord. I don't remember if there was a second chord, and then there was a faster 3/4. Ba, 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 that kind of idea. Don't focus on the notes, focus on the rhythm. A lengthy first note, a lengthy second note, I think, and then a quicker third and fourth. We had a progression. It looped quickly, but we still had a progression. Here, it is just the one idea over and over and over. The vocal melody was like 3 or 4 notes, creating a simple little idea that started on a note, went above it, and came back into it, and went above it and came back into it. It's just this short repetition. The drums, short repetition. Bass, short repetition. It's how the entire chorus is built on. It feels cyclical, like it's going nowhere, but it has momentum. It's not stagnating. It feels like it's always driving towards something. It's spinning its tires. It's not going anywhere. It has a lot of energy, a lot of get up and go. It's just on a conveyor belt. It's stuck where it is. As I mentioned, we come back to the verse. It's a little bigger this time. There's some production changes, but not many, if any, compositional changes. And then we do the chorus again, complete one-to-one recreation of it. At this point, we head into the bridge. Things change a little bit. We keep that short repetition from the chorus, but our guitar's doing something a little different this time around. They're exploring a sound. We have the tremolo picking going on in there, and there's one specific tone it's really focused on, that pitch that it just wants to play over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And we sit in this for quite some time. I think there was one change going up a note or a few, but then we came back down to the one we started on. It was very stagnant. In fact, it felt more intense given the tremolo picking and the expanded drum pattern, but we were still just spinning our tires. We're just sitting there. More energy, more stagnancy. We sat in this for quite some time before things began to pick up. We had not only a change in pitch, having this note actually stagnation, not stagnancy. We had the note rising, giving us increased tension there, but we also had increased tension on the speed side of things. The tempo gradually changes. I don't remember if it was not a retardando, an accelerando, where it was a gradual shift over time, or if every 2 bars we jumped up a few beats per minute, being more of a stepwise increase. Regardless, the tempo gets faster and faster and faster as the notes rise higher and higher and higher. The layers begin to come in heavy, more of them. The layers start out smaller in size, and then their tones and production widening, almost moving towards something very fuzzy, post-rock type of writing here. It doesn't take long until the song feels like it's hit its limit. The sounds stretching out and touching the edges of the sound sphere, no more room for them to grow, and yet they try anyways. What I think is a boiling point is actually just that. As soon as I feel like it can't get any louder, it does, but the bubble has to burst for that to happen. And we bring in an entirely different sound altogether, one focused on a more bass-heavy approach to EQing. I don't know what to call this section. It feels metalier in comparison to the obvious rock that we were just listening to, but it doesn't quite feel metallic to me. But it's heavy, it's bassy, it's booming, and it's fast. Huge. There's just such a massive sound at this point. And yet it feels kind of small. I don't know if anybody else got that too. See, I particularly noted that the sound sphere was burst here because it puts the sound in an infinite space. The sound sphere to me is the extent to which the sound can stretch, how big the song can get layer-wise, density, and volume. If that bursts, the song just exists in a vacuum of infinite space in all directions. I don't think the song necessarily reaches that type of spacious feeling of being so small comparatively, but it does feel like the song isn't quite as large anymore, even though it distinctly is bigger than it was. That's the only thing I can think of, is that we've changed the scope of things. And so while this is bigger than it was, there's an element of it that feels smaller comparative to its new area. I don't know that I've heard many songs that do that. It's a paradox, in a sense, of a song becoming so big it begins to feel small. Paradox might be the wrong word for that. I don't know. Someone can clue me in if there's a good vocab word to cover that idea. Aside from the technical elements here, the production, the guitar fuzz, distortion, and tone, the accelerando, the getting louder, crescendo that goes on through this whole thing, the layering up of the production of the instrument tones, the instruments themselves. There's a theme here as well that I find really interesting. The song is hyperfixated on tight loops of repetition, almost at some points mundanity. The chorus ends up feeling very mid to me. It just becomes something that is like a morning routine. It's not something that's positive or negative, it's just something that happens now. It's so routine that you just kind of do it mindlessly, and that's what the chorus begins to feel like. Through that perspective, the entire opening half of this song ends up to me like feeling in a rut. You do the same things day in, day out. There is a larger pattern to it. It isn't completely monotonous. Yes. Um, but it also isn't something interesting or exciting. It's sort of something that just is. And there's a part of it that is hyper repetitive in a way that it just sort of feels like it's on autopilot. The bridge is interesting because it creates a new direction. It's a change to the repetition, but it doesn't focus on anything new or fresh for quite some time. We start off with just that tremolo picking for quite some time. It is, at least in my experience, even more boring than the verse and chorus that came before it. Again, not that they were particularly boring, it's just having heard each short idea 40 times by then, I was not quite on board with it as I was when it was still fresh to me. Here we get something new and it quickly diminishes that freshness. It becomes even more stagnant than anything we had heard before, but it, unlike the other sections, finds some traction during the moment that it's spinning its wheels, going nowhere fast. Finally, the rubber hits the ground and the car takes off. In this metaphor, what do you do if for the longest time you've had the accelerator to the floorboard, nothing has ever changed, you've always sat still, and for the first time in who knows how long, you're going somewhere and you're going somewhere fast now. How do you respond to that? It's a wild ride of emotions, I would wager. I figure it would probably be something similar as if this channel ever took off one night. I wake up in the morning and I've hit 500,000 subscribers and the number keeps climbing. What would I do? You're the dog that's been chasing the cars and finally got it. What do you actually do in this situation? You don't know. There's no experience to draw on from this. And that's what the end of the song feels like to me. It's chaotic, it's energetic, it's joyful, but it's also overwhelming. Eventually it becomes too overwhelming. It almost feels like the song wants to stop. All of the high end sound eventually gets replaced to a weighty, heavy, low end focus, almost as if they're trying to hit the brakes, throwing an anchor out the window, trying to get the car to stop, putting as much weight on it as it can to bring the song to a halt. It doesn't work. It just makes the situation more tense. It increases the weightiness of the atmosphere without actually bringing the song to any sort of a controllable speed. I don't know what the story is to any of this. This is just how I felt listening to it. But I do know that I was hoping the song would pick up, especially when we got to the bridge and I felt just that tremolo note on that, the tremolo picking on the one note, and I was just like, man, I wish something would happen. And then a lot of something happened, and it created a very intense ride out of the song. I got my wish, monkey paw style, I suppose. But thematically, it just fits so well. I'm gonna hit some lyrics, see what's going on there, see if we can't wrap up my thoughts into anything a bit more meaningful. Alright, the lyrics here suggest that we have somebody who they're very excited about somebody else that they can't see or physically be around. My first thought might be that this was some sort of long distance relationship, but verse 1 indicates, "You make me sleep so badly, invisible friend," making me think that it's actually not someone real at all. I'm not quite sure what direction this goes in, but the concept here is that our narrator can't stop thinking about this other person, but also can't physically be with them. The intro says, "This much delight fills columns to new heights. All these things about me you can never tell." Verse 1 says, "Colors run prime, paint a picture so bright. All these things about me you can never tell. You make me sleep so badly, invisible friend." So, I'm always thinking about you. I have trouble falling asleep because of that. I am such a vibrant person and I'm filled with such delight, but you can't ever know these things about me. You'll never be able to notice them. That kind of vibe. Verse 2 focuses on this concept of hyperfixation, saying fierce steps shadow, life's will gone sorry, fierce steps shadow, life's will gone shallow. All these things about me you can never tell. So I'm kind of losing the willpower to keep going on. All I want is you, and I can't have that. And then after that, "You make me sleep so badly, invisible friend." 3 times to hyperfixate on that one line. The hook then says, "Turn the dial on my words, I can feel them fall short. Turn the dial, chime alarm, watch these hands move apart. Turn the dial on my words, I can see you staying here." Now this is interesting. We introduced the concept of time, turning a dial, like an egg timer. Also the idea of an alarm chiming, like an alarm clock, and watch these hands move apart, hands on a clock, as shows the passage of time, but also he says, "I can see you staying here," indicating possibly that the narrator is moving while the person that they're fixated on is staying still, creating a distance between their hands as well. Maybe at one point in time they could hold hands, they could physically touch each other, but those hands are drifting apart as time moves on. That kind of concept, double entendre there. So I think that's what's going on here. Maybe they were friends, maybe they had a relationship, maybe it's always been an unrequited love concept, but regardless, our narrator is moving on and the person of their affection is not. It causes them to hyperfixate on it, to feel less than happy sometimes, to feel super delighted at other times, and they can't sleep at night. I'm trying to figure out how this works with my read of the music. The concept of standing still, I think, works well. It's not only mentioned directly in the chorus of this track, but it's also about being hyperfixated, about not being able to focus on anything else, having your attention tuned to one specific thing. There is no contrast, there are no dynamics, there's no change of pace. The song thinks about one thing at a time, our narrator thinks of one thing at a time. I really like that synergy there. The only other thing then that I could think of is that the ending isn't about getting what you want. It's about time moving quickly and you're forced to go along with it. In a sense, maybe the narrator would have liked to stand still as well, allow time to freeze, to have this moment last as long as it can, but you can't pause time. And so the back half of this track is the acceleration or the feeling of acceleration, of distance and temporal space between our narrator and the person they like. They're physically moving away from them, but they're also becoming distant in time as well. Maybe this whole thing is a memory of how this person was 10, 20 years ago. They've watched the hands move apart all these years, that kind of vibe. Kind of felt the years pass quickly. I don't know. That's kind of where I see this, though. I think there are some ties here, and that makes me think that the themes are rather synergistic, even if I can't see all of the ways that they're tied together. It does seem that, at least on some level, there's some really cool threads being tied between the musical themes and the lyrical ones, and telling a story through both of them. Those are my thoughts on the Joy Formidable's Whirring. Let me know yours, though. Did you enjoy this? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said? Correct me on, give me your own thoughts or opinions on. Put all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this little menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We do have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll be looking at more indie rock. I was like, what are we doing tomorrow? Yeah, more indie rock, which this has been a pretty good week for so far. So I'm looking forward to our last 2 days on that. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.